Okay, what's up, YouTube? This is GoatCast Hoops, and if you haven't heard by now, Anthony Edwards decided to say some things that ruffled a few feathers. This goes back to that we're done with the 90s phase where everyone came out wanting to show clips from the 80s and 90s and how those players didn't have this and that and the other, and just saying that it was laughable basketball. But in reality, the sport of basketball has not changed that drastically, where you can't find that kind of footage in any era and clown those specific players or those specific teams. So it's not nothing that is groundbreaking when you look up clips of old players or old teams or even current teams and just find the bad footage or bad stretches of basketball. That's not hard to do. So we're not even going to get into that. But Anthony Edwards has some things to say about the former era. And this is what he had to say. He says, "They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill. You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God. But now everybody has skill." Now I'm trying to figure out what skill everybody has. And I see this a lot. I've seen this on Facebook, Reddit, everywhere, where people say, oh, well, the players now have a better skill set. And they never really say what that skill set is. Some will say they can dribble better, which I agree. Dribbling has become a paramount skill that most players have to learn, not just the point guard or the guards or the wings, but from 1 through 5. Nowadays, it's more likely that you'll learn how to properly dribble or have better handles than you did back in the day, because nowadays the game is played completely different than it was even 10 years ago. So, of course, certain skills are going to be more paramount for players to learn. So then I think, well, do they mean shooting? And yes, that's a skill. That's something you're taught. That's something you can work on. But back in the day, like I said, certain skills and certain things were more specialized than they are now. Whereas everybody has a grasp of being able to play multiple positions and being okay at doing that. But back then, coaches and teams looked at your strengths and your weaknesses and said, you know what, you'd be better at the 4, you'd be better at the 5, you'd be better point guard, you can dribble better than most, and you can handle it, and you can absorb, the defenders and get through them and keep the ball at an advantageous state. And then, you have those guys, well, you can shoot. So obviously once you play on the wing, so you're going to be, our shooting guard or our small forward, you can defend. You can defend quick players. So you're going to be our small forward. You're going to be this, that, or the other. So as the kids say, now your bag was probably a little smaller back then because you devoted more time to certain skill sets, if that's what you want to call it, or certain aspects of the game. You would spend your time learning that and spend your time getting better at that, because that was where you would be on the floor. That was your role. I think back then we were more role-based in the way we were trained and taught than now, where you're just trained to be a general player. That may sound bad, but it's the truth. I mean, you're essentially taught to play like almost any player. Just some take to some aspects of the game better than others. You're taught to dribble, but then you may not be able to handle it like this guy on your team. So this kid is going to be your point guard. You have enough skill to be able to bring the ball up if necessary. So I don't know exactly if that's what Ant-Man means, but that's what I assume he means, is that most players are able to play multiple positions or to do multiple things on the court, or be able to excel at multiple roles on the court. Whereas back then, and I can say that because I played a lot of basketball, I had almost one role. I played center most of the time, or power forward. So my role was already defined. And so I had to excel at the things that a center or 4 did. And that was what I trained most of my time on, because I knew when I got in the game, my coach was not going to call my number to bring the ball up. So I wasn't out there trying to get these crazy handles. And of course, I'm a product of the 80s and 90s, so, take that for what you want. But I am a lover of the game, and I do dissect the game and learn the games. I feel like that's just kind of a blanket statement when people or players or whoever say the players now have a better skill set, because you really don't break it down and say what skills they have that are better now than they were then. I mean, we can assume what you mean. Yes, they shoot more, but that wasn't a go-to thing back then. You usually had a specialist, a 3-point specialist, who was your guy that was going to shoot the long ball. Not everybody was out there shooting it. So now you have guys from 1 through 5 that are out there on the 3-point line, and it's a different ball game. The game has evolved, and that's the way it should be. Every sport, there's things that are done currently that weren't done before. Technology has advanced, so now you can study, and now you have YouTube, where we all can go to and find almost any game and any player, break down what they do, break down what they did, and see what you can do to maximize their strengths and then cover up your weaknesses by doing this or that. So with technology advancing, of course, the game is going to change. And of course, rules changing as well is a big factor. The game has been sped up for a reason, for entertainment purposes. When I broke down the FIBA versus NBA rules, FIBA, as you saw throughout the Olympics, the style was completely different. It wasn't even like watching an NBA game, because the pace was slower. It was more team-oriented than now, where you want to highlight this player, this offensive player. So it brings me back to Anthony Edwards' quote. Michael Jordan wasn't the only player with skill. That's just ridiculous to say. And I know he's only 23 years old. He might have just been trolling. It might have been a question that caught him off guard, so he really didn't have time to formulate a proper answer. But still, if you're going to make a statement like Michael Jordan was the only skilled player, and then when Kobe came, everyone was like, wow, that's just talking crazy, because that's just showing how little you know of the past in that era. There were many guys that had skills, and I can break it down. I can go down the list. Your Dominique Wilkins, Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Charles Barkley, Scottie Pippen had skills. Magic Johnson had skills. Larry Bird had skills. Dr. J had skills. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had skills. Moses Malone had skills. George Gervin had skills. Oscar Robertson had skills. I can keep going, but you get the gist of what I'm saying, is that Michael Jordan was just an anomaly in that he was hyper athletic, which we still had those types. We had Dominique Wilkins, who was very athletic, could score just like Mike in many ways, but there was just an aura to Michael Jordan. And he had, of course, the Nike machine behind him. We can go into that, but that's not why we're here. But Michael Jordan just was blessed with a great team at a certain point. Didn't start that way, but he was blessed to get a great team. He was blessed to be as hardworking as he was, and that guy just wanted it. I think Anthony Edwards will be talking about different players had other players ate during Jordan's, especially his peak and his prime. If Clyde Drexler, if Karl Malone, if David Robinson, if Charles Barkley, if Dominique Wilkins, if any of those guys had gotten chips while Jordan was on watch, like many have during, we're not even going to talk about the other guy, but many guys have come in and won rings during this era. If that had happened during Jordan's watch, Jordan probably wouldn't be the only one he says has skills. He's probably only drawing that conclusion from the fact that Jordan had 6 rings, or has 6 rings, and 2 three-peats, and pretty much kept any player that was great during that time on the outside looking in. I know many people have weighed in on this, and I just want to give my 2 cents, but come on, Anthony Edwards. You got to dig a little bit deeper than that. And if you're going to make a odd statement like he was the only one that had skills, and then Kobe came, and then, and everybody has those skills, then why isn't everybody averaging what Kobe and Mike average? Why isn't everybody's name in the record books right now? Why does Michael Jordan still hold the highest average of a player when it comes to points in the regular season and the playoffs, if everyone has the same skill set that he has now? And before I get out of here, I do think players are more skilled now, but I don't agree with the bigger, stronger, faster, whatever. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trying to hit that 2,000 sub goal. Can't do it without you guys. I really appreciate all the support you guys have given to the channel, and hope you will continue, and hope that you're enjoying this place. I really enjoyed doing this. I'll be back soon. Thank you all. Have a great week.